Hey there, welcome to Bandit's Keep. I'm Daniel, and we are continuing in this video our adventure design process here using the Moldvay Basic system. There's 10 kind of seeds, I guess, that they give you, and we've been working our way through them. I think this is number 5. So, as before, I've done a little bit of legwork up front, so that this video is not tremendously long, but I'll walk through the process here, and if this is the first time, that you've seen one of these, there's going to be a link to the playlist that has the rest. So let's take a look at the basic book. So again, if you're unfamiliar with this, Basic Expert is essentially the framework by which the OSE system, so if you see OSE is kind of popular right now, this is basically what OSE is. Just OSE is like a reformatted version of it, for lack of a better word. So all the information should be similar. It's not written exactly the same, so I like this format better, but certainly if you're using OSE or anything like that, any OSR game really, actually any game, I think this could actually be really useful. So in any case, we've got this here. It tells you to just choose a scenario. I mean, obviously you can create whatever adventure you want to create. These are just seeds, right? So it gives you some 10 options here, which I've been rolling randomly on to kind of, put myself on the spot, if you will. And I did roll this time. I got actually number 5, which is visiting a shrine. So if we see over here visiting a shrine, if we go down to the bottom with the description, it says visiting a lost shrine. To remove a curse or recover a sacred item, the players must travel to a shrine which has been lost for ages. Characters usually only have a rough idea of its location. Players may have to consult an oracle or seer during their visit. Okay, so this is cool, right? It gives you an idea of what you might want to do. It gives you kind of a seed, as I said. And of course, drawing on different types of media, books you've read, movies, comic books, whatever, video games, who knows, just stories you've heard, you might have different ideas of how this could work. Now, because we are sticking with a basic level adventure for now, I guess this is like the 5th one. Oh, it's number 5 on the 5th one. That's kind of interesting. I've been sticking with levels 1 through 3, which is basic, which of course is essentially dungeon crawls. We've done some stuff outside, but effectively we're kind of starting at the dungeon. So while it does say they don't know necessarily where it is, and they might have to consult oracles to get there, I'm not going to really involve that so much in this particular adventure. I think that if you're using this in your campaign, obviously you can use that however you want. If you're running it as a one-shot, we're going to kind of start it as we're there. I am going to also try to achieve in this one a little different. In the past, we've built like full layers. I've just done maximum amounts of monsters to create kind of an adventure site that they can continue to go back to. This one I'm going to kind of try to stick with the one-shot, we'll call it format, which doesn't necessarily mean it's only going to take one session, but the idea is that they're just going to go do this thing and leave. It's not going to be a place they go back to over and over again. So there's a Conan the Barbarian story, Conan of Shimmerid story, where effectively he goes to this fortress, right, which is kind of on this like high precipice, kind of a ridge that's effectively, it's like a cliff leading up to the top of a flat surface, which has like a jungle on top, and it's hard to climb up, whatever, and this is in the center of a lake. So I thought that'd be a good place for the shrine to be. It's out of the way. It's going to be tricky to get there. We can add a little bit of interest to it. And I said, what can we use for a monster? Now, the way that I did this, because I've been asked this several times, so I'll go through this a little bit, is because I'm kind of trying to be a little more random here. What I did was I went into, this is the basic book again, I went down to, they've got the Wandering Monster tables here, okay, Wandering Monsters, for levels 1 through 3. So I rolled a 6-sided die to get myself basically a D3, right, to pick a level, and I rolled a 3. So it's going to be a 3rd level adventure. And I rolled a D20 on this list here, and I got Harpies, which is actually really perfect for this. So I thought, aha, good. Actually, the order of operations of how I did this is a little bit different. First, I rolled the shrine thing, then I rolled the Harpies, then I thought of the Conan thing, so to get the actual order of how I thought of things. So now I've got Harpies as a bad guy. We know they can fly. That makes sense that they might be someplace remote, right? But they can still be, still be dangerous. So maybe they fly to the shoreline and charm people, or maybe there's boat fishermen out here sometimes, that kind of thing. But effectively, they're living in this, shrine, which is going to be on the top of this flat, kind of forested area that's in the middle of a lake. So that's kind of my location. And then the next thing I did, which is, these are all things I did before I got here to this point where we're going to start rolling. Okay, so this is the iPad here. You can see I made some notes already for myself. Basically, the harpies on a small island, which I mentioned. The shrine is on the top, the temple in the base of the cliff. I decided that when they get to the shoreline, there'd be kind of like a cave entrance and like a temple down there. Maybe people came to visit, and this is like where the monks and stuff live. So there's a little bit of a dungeon at the bottom if you want to do that. Otherwise, they can climb the sheer surface. If you have like a thief, for instance, they want to drop ropes down. Obviously your player characters they're third level. I mean, they could do all kinds of things. They might have a flying carpet at this point. It's dangerous to climb outside with the dungeon inside. So here's the setup. Local Baron's daughter has been sick for some time. The seer says only the waters of the long-forsaken shrine can heal her. The party's traveling with the Duke, his daughter. A priest will sanctify the shrine and a small group of guards. So, you imagine they're traveling. But their job is basically to get to the shrine and like clear it out, make sure it's safe before the Duke goes in there with his sickly daughter. So effectively, they're gonna go through first and make sure, basically slaying the monsters or whatever, so that it makes the shrine safe. You can use this a lot of ways. Again, depends on your parties and how you want to work this. This could be fun in and of itself, like, if the harpies or some other kind of attack happens on the way, there's a lot of things we can do here. So the harpy's nest is on the shrine, possible monster encampment on the shore, I thought of, and then some monsters on the top of the island we want to work with, some monsters in the dungeon, and I kind of want to make this, like I said, more like a one-shot location. And of course, we can expand this. If you want to see that, like, as I know some people have talked about hex crawling in the expert book, what I was thinking about doing was creating a sister adventure to go with this to kind of find the shrine. That's going to be a bit of a hex crawl. Let me know if that interests you, and if so, we'll do that as maybe the next one of these, or as a side thing. Let me know. Anyways, let's take a look. So again, I'm in on my iPad. So effectively, so this is effectively our map. So over here, this is like a shoreline where the party's going to come from. I'm thinking possibly it's like swampy coming out to here, or maybe there's roads because it's fishermen. We can kind of think about that. This right here is the shrine on top of the cliff. I've made it 200 feet tall. Over here, you've got some other rocky bits that, just for interest. This is a beach, again, which something could be on if we want. This right here is the entrance to that cave/dungeon. And if you were to just walk through, like if you were back in the day when the temple was being used, you could just walk in there and a set of stairs would lead you to the top where the shrine is. Of course, that's not going to be the situation anymore, right? So what I've got here, the dungeon. So, I should point out too that on that top layer, the scale is, because outside, 1 square is 10 yards. So then I drop back in and now I have a dungeon, one square is 10 feet. We've got the cave, right? And then again, like back when this thing was opened up, this is kind of what I'm thinking. You would come in here and there's basically a hallway and there's a spiral staircase right that leads to the top. However, this is all collapsed. So we got to collapse there, so you can't just go that way. I mean, I guess if they weren't in a rush or they want to take their time, or if they eventually clear the shrine from further use, that'll be cleared out. But right now, they just want to get inside. So I've got more rubble over here where there's basically was a large door that blocked off the private area, if you will, of the monks, which is in here. So I figured now we've got kind of an entrance room. We've got this area here where possibly your various monks or whatever lived. Then we've got the high priest would live in here. And basically what we've got is another, like basically a guard room over here. Because like if people came in and they disregarded the stairs and went through this door, they want an area here that people aren't just going to walk randomly in, or maybe an area where there's like ritual cleansing. We can decide what's in there. And then these hallways all lead up to here where there's some statues. There's a secret door behind one of them, which leads to basically where like some kind of saint or god or whatever is buried. And that's the reason why the shrine is very powerful. So this might have a whole bunch of treasure in it. This is probably not something that the characters in this particular adventure are going to explore, but it's good to have more in the adventure than is kind of meant to be in the adventure. Because who knows what's going to happen, right? There could be many reasons why they would come here. If they want to disregard the first reason, maybe after they help the Baron, they come back because they're like, hey, we can loot this place if they're more chaotic or neutral or whatever. And finally, the third map that I drew is going to be the top layer. So again, I just have these on layers to make my life easy. This is the shrine. you could almost think of this as kind of like a battle map, right? Effectively, the harpies are going to be here, and they made a nest in the actual shrine, which is going to need to be cleaned out and stuff, right? You've got some columns and stuff. So this is basically just where the harpies are. So let's take a quick look at this and see how we're going to work this out before we start filling it in. Just kind of, when you're making an adventure, it's good to have an idea of what you think might happen, even though obviously the players are going to do whatever they're going to do, right? Okay, so the way we're going to approach this is we're going to start with the end, if you will, the main monster, the harpies, right? We're going to place them, we're going to figure out how many they are, and then we're going to put some monsters maybe on the top, and then we'll work our way down into the dungeon. If we feel like the adventure is not challenging enough, then we'll put an automatic, if you will, encounter with like some kind of creature on the shore, either before or after. I think after will be pretty fun. That way also, if you are running it as a one shot and you run out of time, you don't have to that encounter, right? You don't want to put an encounter at the very beginning, and then it makes it so that the last encounter, or the cool encounter, or the encounter where they kind of solve the problem has to be cut short. So we'll leave that for an ending encounter, but we'll only add that if we really feel like we need it. Otherwise, we'll just have some chance of wandering monster, because you always want that. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so going into, we're going to set up our harpies first. So going into the basic book, we're going to go to the harpies. So they are armor class 7. They're 3 hit dice, right? So they're pretty tough. They can fly at 150, or 50 during combat, which is fast, right? That's faster than most people are going to be able to move around. They are 2 claws or 1 weapon plus special. The special is a charm, right? Harpies sing. They come in 2 to 8 layer wise, and they don't have very high morale, so they might actually run off. I might boost their morale slightly if I was running this. I'm not going to put it in the adventure, but when running this, if it's their actual lair, I may boost the morale, or at the very least have them come back after retreating if they are if the party starts. Obviously, if they stick around, right? So, but let's roll for how many are here first, because again, when I've been doing these in the past, I've been considering a full lair, so I would have just said 8, but let's go with fewer harpies, because 8 harpies could be a lot. So let's roll 2d4. We got a 1 and a 3. So there's 4 harpies. So we've got a total of 4 harpies up here, which is still going to be pretty deadly. I'm just going to go over my iPad, and I'm going to make a note of that. Okay, so that's about half what a lair would be, right? And they are, treasure type is C. I think what I'm going to do with this, as far as wandering, because it says wandering is 1 to 6, so obviously wandering could be 1 to 4. But I kind of feel like that at most, well, you're probably going to, I think they're solitary unless they're at the base. So I'm probably going to have, when they're wandering, if you do encounter one, they'll just be 1. Okay, so a harpy has the lower body of a giant eagle, upper body and head of a hideous-looking woman. By singing, the harpies lure creatures to them. So in other words, when they're up wandering around, when they get close to the lair, the harpies will start singing, right? You got to make a save versus spell, or you'll move towards the harpies. Resisting attempts, people stop them, but you won't attack, right? If they save against the songs of the harpies, they will not be affected by any of the songs during the encounter. So basically, once you save the one time, you're pretty much safe to fight the harpies. But if you fail, that's going to be a problem, right? They are resistant to magic and have a +2 on their saves, so you can go from there. So, again, they're pretty tough. They're chaotic. They're going to be cowardly, but they're going to want to kill, the adventurers and take them. So what could be on the top of the island here that would go with the harpies that wouldn't just be their prey all the time? That's what we want to figure out. So let's look down at the wandering monsters. And again, when we're doing wandering monsters, we want to do a mix, right? We want to have some at that level. You don't want every monster to be a 3rd level monster, but we want some monsters at that level, some not. Whatever, but let's look at things that might make sense to be up there with the harpies. I'm not going to maybe do a huge list. I'm just going to maybe have like 3 or 4 things max. So white apes we've used before. They tend to be around with Neanderthals, and they're actually kind of smart. So I'm thinking, no. Tiger beetles might be interesting in the dungeon part. Bugbears, definitely not. Carrion crawler, they probably won't be enough carrion for them to eat. A doppelganger, probably not. Ants, I think, would conflict with the harpies. The gargoyles could be interesting, right? Because it's an old ruin. So a gargoyle like on the ruin could be interesting. It's up on top. So let's go gargoyle. Living statues. Again, it's a shrine, right? That's been corrupted. So on this top part of the island, there could be living statues. Let's see. The crystal ones. Were-rats, no. Mediums, that'd be people. So definitely not. Medusa, no. NPC party, no. Jellies and stuff, I like them in the dungeon, so we might use those later. An ogre, definitely not. Shadows, maybe in the dungeon again. Spiders, ghouls, and whites, I don't think any of that stuff would be up here. So up top, as far as third level monsters, we've got harpies themselves, living statues, and gargoyles. Let's see at second level if there's anything that might work for us. Again, beetles and stuff could be there. I don't think there'd be any animals like mountain lions, because what would they be hunting, right? Elves, gnolls, oozes, lizards. Lizards could be kind of interesting, right? I could see a lizard being up there. Lizard men, which we might actually use. I'm going to make a note of this. That's what we might use on the shore. So let's put that to the second side. Neanderthals, nobles, pixies. Again, I don't think pixies would be near harpies, because again, they kind of conflict. Robber flies. Those could be interesting only because I imagine the harpies are bringing people up and like tearing them apart and leaving like carnage, so maybe flies would be around. Snakes, always interesting. And I see rock baboon here, which I think could be very interesting, because rock baboons are, let's put those on there and let's just look at them before we make a choice. I think that they're meant to be in more jungly areas, which is fine. Snake. That would give us actually five options, which I think is going to be pretty perfect. Let's take a quick look. Again, none of the rest of them up there look good. No, you could put a first level wandering monster as well. Let's quickly look at this. Killer bees maybe, different kinds of snakes, sturges. But again, I think those would be competing with the harpies, so I'm going to say no to those. So let's jump in the monsters again. And let's go down and take a look at our possible options here. I want to look at rock baboons. That's the one I really am going to look at. Okay, rock baboons are armor class 6. So they're not tremendously hard to hit. They have 2 hit dice, so they're pretty tough. They get a quick movement. They have 2 attacks, which makes them a little bit tougher. They come in groups of 2 to 12 if you encounter them, and they're large versions of normal baboons. They're more intelligent. They'll eat anything but prefer meat. They do not make tools or weapons or pick up bones and branches. They form packs, led by dominant male. They're ferocious and have vicious tempers. They do not speak a true language. I think I like rock baboons for this. So I'm going to say that besides the harpies, the rock baboons are kind of the main thing up here. Then you've got some snake options. Pit viper, I think, was the one that we... Let's take a look at the different snakes, because I feel like, again, baboons feel like they're a little bit more tropical-y. So let's see, spinning cobra. I kind of like spinning cobra as well, because that adds a little bit of extra to the fight, because they can spit the stuff and blind people, and they're also only 1 hit die, which makes them a little bit more doable. So I'm going to jump over here, and I'm going to actually add the rock baboons coming in groups of 2 to 12, and the snakes. I'm going to say spinning cobra. There could be, let's see, those guys come in 1 to 6. And again, these are wandering monsters. And if you're wondering how a living statue is wandering, I mean, what I generally do with that is, if I roll, I mean, you can obviously, they could be walking around, but if I roll that, they encounter it as they're wandering themselves, like the player characters run into the crystal statues. Gargoyles, same thing with the gargoyles, they'll be fixed in 1 spot. So let's take a quick look. I think it's under statue crystal, so statue living, not living statue. Nope, it's definitely under living statue. Okay, so let's go down there. Let's go back the right way. Oops. Living statue crystal. Armor class 4, hit dice 3. So again, these guys are pretty tough. And you can encounter 1 to 6 of them, which would be pretty dangerous. And our gargoyles. So 1 to 6 of those guys. All right, so effectively, we've got the harpies as our main bad guy up top. There is going to be a possibility of encountering harpies, gargoyles, living statues, rock baboons, and spinning cobras. That's kind of our wandering monsters up top. And of course, the harpies themselves in their little lair area. In the dungeon part itself, we're going to have, now again, it can be invaded by things that came from the shore because it's opened up, right? Or there could be something in there that's trapped or whatever. So let's take a look at this and see what we might want to put in here. So again, here's Wandering Monsters level 2. This is number level 1, and I'm going to start at level 3. That's where we are. Again, Carrion Crawler, I don't know they'd be enough. The ants could be interesting, but I found that giant ants can be really devastating, and I don't know why they'd be sitting there on the island. Gelatinous Tube doesn't make sense to me. I think we can definitely do living statues again. We actually have some statues in there. Ochre Jelly is always good. Shadows. And I think I like shadows as a thing, right? And again, this is in the water, so now I'm going up to level 2 monsters. Let's look at the lizard. I'm going to go look at the lizards in a second because I'm going to see which ones I want to use. Oh, I guess while I'm here, I should do this. So the shadows come in groups of 1 to 8. Ochre Jelly is 1. Living statues is weird. No, it's 1 to 6. The lizards we'll deal with when we get there. Giant spiders are always a classic, but I'm also trying to look at things that won't necessarily influence each other. Because in some of the other dungeons we've talked about, okay, these monsters eat these ones, and that's why they're there. But I feel like in this, it's not really an environment; it's just going to be like vermin kind of hanging out. So let's go up. The beetles again are interesting. I'm a big fan of fire beetles, so I'm just going to do fire beetles. I think they're cool. And I'm going to do green slime, because green slime was always a classic. The green slimes come in 1 to 4. Fire beetles come in 1 to 8. And let's take a quick look at the different kinds of lizards. Okay, I want to see which lizard seems the most appropriate, because again, this is like a little island thing. So we've got geckos, nocturnal. They climb steep walls or trees and then drop on prey to attack. So they could actually be up top. And maybe they've worked their way down. Let's see, Draco, 6 foot long. That's big. Flaps of skin. It can glide through the air. Oh, that's pretty cool. Above ground, so that's no good. Horned chameleon, 7 foot long. Surprises, that's really nice for inside of things. Sticky tongue. Okay, and Tortella, it looks, Tortara, I should say. Iguana and a toad. So Tortella are kind of cool. They are 6 hit dice, though. Holy guacamole. And so is the chameleon, 5 hit dice. So that's actually pretty tough. So even though it says wandering 1 to 6, I think if I use those at all, I'm going to go really just put one of them, because that monster is overcharged for this level. But we have some overcharged and some undercharged. Okay, so we've got the monsters now for the sting. Let's place them. That's really what we're going to do at this point. So I'm going to jump over to the map, and we'll go ahead and we'll place our monsters below and then also above. Okay, let's take a look at the map. This is the above ground one. I'm going to kind of deal with this after the fact, because again, I want to see how tough this whole thing is before we get into it. Let's stock the dungeon first. So again, this is just in Procreate. I'm picking up them on different levels. So I'm gonna this level 7 here, I'm just going to use so I can write on the map, and that way I can still have like a player map or whatever, if you will. So we've got an entrance, and then we've got, I'm just numbering the rooms, 3, 4, 5, 6 right there, and then we have 7. And I guess this is technically an area here as well, because there's some statues there. I guess that's going to be pretty obvious, right? We can put a living statue there. So let's look at each of these areas and figure out where we want to put our various monsters, and from that we can actually go. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use in the basic book, I'm going to go to stock the dungeon. And yes, of course, you can clearly decide what you want to put in each room, but I think this is kind of fun as well, because we can see what we've got in the various rooms. What I will say is that before we do this, we know certain things, right? We know where certain monsters are going to be up top, but in the dungeon itself, I think I'm going to leave it pretty empty. I do like the idea of shadows being in room 4, because that's going to be like the High Priest chamber. It's going to be like hidden back. That can be really kind of fun. And I like the idea of the living statues being in number 8. So we're probably going to do that, right? Aside from that, we'll roll randomly for the rest of the rooms. So let's start again. Let's look at the map. We're looking at the map now. So do this so we can see both things. So effectively what you do here is we roll a d6 to see what's potentially in the room. So I'll do the first room. This is going to be the entrance. I'm going to roll a d6, and I got a 2. So there's a monster there. So now we're going to decide what monster is going to be there. And since we have a list, living statue, ochre jelly, shadows, lizard, chameleon, fire beetle, green slime, but also we're still kind of outside. So I may use some of the other stuff from above. So I'm just going to actually look at this, and I'm going to give a chance. I don't think it'll be the living statues. So I'm going to give a chance that it's the rock baboons, the spitting cobra, And then I'm just going to go down the list. So I'll roll it. So I got 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's green slime, actually. So that's kind of interesting. Green slime at the first room. So room number 1. This is the cave entrance. Now we know that they occur in 1 to 4. There's 3 of them. Now green slime themselves, I don't think actually have treasure. So, but we're still going to roll, right? If we go back here, we can see that you still roll to see if there's treasure. So I'm going to roll a d6, and I got a 5. So with a monster, there's no treasure. So that actually makes sense. I mean, green slime. Yeah. But if we had rolled treasure there, then that's when we use up here in the top. We've got the empty or non-existent treasure, or whatever you want to call it. So like this is like treasure from when the monster doesn't have a treasure type, because green slimes don't have a treasure type. So that's room 1, easy, right? Green slime in there, and obviously we'll talk about it as far as flavor and whatever as we go. But I just want to stop the dungeon first. I always feel like that's a good way to do it. Okay, so room 2 is going to be this kind of entrance area, but where the monks or whatever might kind of come in, leave their robes, put their shoes, whatever it might be. I rolled a 6, and a 6 is empty. Now, when we roll, we again roll another d6 in any case, and I got a 4. And in an empty room of 4 does not have any treasure. So room 2 is just empty. There's not going to be a monster in the room. Now, there could be a wandering monster, but there's not a monster in room 2. Room 3, I roll a 6, which is empty, and a 2. In an empty room, 2 is no treasure. So room 3 is also empty, right? Now we know that room 4, we're going to put shadows in. So let's go back to here. And again, empty room does not mean that there's nothing in the room per se. It means that there's no monster or treasure or trap. There's going to be stuff in there, right? This is where your exploration and your role playing, talking to the players, that you're going to add flavor here. Room 4, we're going to place the shadows. They came in groups of 1 to 6. So 1 to 6. No, 1 to 8 shadows. Okay. Wow. 7 shadows. That's going to be a tough counter. So that's got a monster. Let's see if there's treasure. A 2. And in a room with a monster, 2 means there is treasure. So let's take a quick look at this. Okay, so shadows have treasure type F. Okay, so now we're going to roll for that. Now, we've done this before. I did a whole thing on rolling for treasure. There's 7 of 8 possible, so I'm going to say I'll use the regular treasure type here. We'd go to treasure type F, and we're going to roll through this. There's a pretty good chance that there's a lot of treasure in here. Now, I've shown this before, and I'll show it again. If you're kind of in a rush, you can, instead of doing it piece by piece, although I kind of like doing it, you can use some of the like, for instance, OSC treasure generators, which are great. They did a great job over here creating this table here. So since we're in the basic book, we could very easily just hit boom, treasure type F, and now we have treasure for the shadows. This is pretty good, and we'll just take it, easy enough. Wow, bunch of magic items, actually. That's really, really good. So I can just take these, and I'm just going to copy and paste them. Okay, so I've copied and pasted them into this room. This is what's in here as far as treasure. There's a bunch of it. And what's cool about this too, by the way, if you haven't used the online generators, is that you can see that these are links. So like if I were to click, it should open up automatically. Let's see. Staff of Healing, you just click on it, and bam, tells you exactly what it is. So that's pretty convenient. And if you just want to know treasure map here, it'll give us an idea. This is treasure map type 7. That's what it says. 7 is 5d6 gems and 2 magic items. So they're going to find a treasure map if they go in there, which is pretty cool. Leads to another adventure. I think I've talked about maps before. If I haven't and you want to hear more, or maybe even if I have, you guys want to hear more about treasure maps and how I think they're really cool and how they can be used in different adventure building, let me know in the comments. So again, this is not a tremendous amount of loot as far as experience points, but there's a decent amount of loot there. All right, so let's go here. And the next room, I'm going to roll a d6. I got 3, which I think is trap. 3 is a trap, yep. Okay, so there's a trap in room 3. Let's look at our map for a second and see what room 3 is. That actually makes perfect sense for what I said. This is going to be a room that they were using to basically, if somebody were to go past the stairs, right, in a way that they shouldn't have, basically, this is going to be a room where the monks or whatever would stop them. So there's a trap in here. Let's take a look at the room traps that they list. And again, you can put anything you want in here, obviously, but I always like to play around with what basic gives you. So for room traps, they've got a poison gas, save versus poison, fog, looks like poison, a pit, obviously classic, ceiling block, pendulum blade is fun, a shoot. Those are all cool. I feel like that the monks being part of like a healing shrine probably wouldn't want to kill anybody. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make the trap something that will be more of a kind of holds them up and makes it like exciting, but effectively, is more scary than it is deadly. So what we're going to do is I'm going to modify the map slightly to make this work. Well, I'm not actually going to modify the map. Yeah, I'll just put a little note on it. So here we go. Let's go back to the iPad. What we're going to do is we're going to use the old, when they walk through this room, if they don't give some kind of a command word or whatever, right, room 5, then effectively here and here, doors are going to drop. And then the room is going to fill with gas. And that gas is going to actually be a sleeping gas. But I'm going to make it so that they need to make a save versus poison. And then what we'll do is if they fail, they fall to the ground unconscious. They will look like they are dead, basically. If somebody checks them, they're going to seem dead. It's one of those things where they go into like a coma where their breathing slows or whatever. And it's only going to be for like a few hours, right? But this way, as they're trying to get out and force their way out, they'll have to keep making saves until eventually they bust through, or they don't, and then they'll just all wake up a few hours later knocked out. So it's more of a scary trap than anything else. And depending on what's going on, it could create some kind of an interesting scenario. You could set it up so that they get robbed. Maybe there's bandits around that know about this if you want to add that kind of stuff to your thing, or possibly the lizard men if we're going to use that as a thing. So let's go write this up. Okay, so when entering the room, an ancient prayer must be spoken, or both entrances are suddenly blocked by falling stone doors. Okay, now, the room begins to fill with a gas. Looks that green foggy gas, save versus poison, or fall to a deep slumber. That death must save each round for 2 to 8 rounds, or fall victim. Stone can be lifted with a combined strength. We'll say 4 characters typically is in a party these days, and we'll say if they need to be above average strength, so 13. So 4 times 13 is 52. Okay, so if all of them stay up and they're all above average strength, they can lift the doors. This is pretty extreme, but I think at the same time, it's meant to kind of scare the perches off them. Those affected will sleep for 1d6 hours, then awaken. Feeling weak but unharmed. Okay. This is one of those things, right, where like depending on how the party goes in there, if one person scouts ahead, they might get trapped by themselves and the people on the outside can help save them. They could smash through. There's all kinds of things you can do, and I don't think you need to write all that up into any particular room. I think this is enough to get somebody going. Now, let's see if there's treasure here, right? Because remember, even though there's no monster, we're still going to roll. I'm going to roll a d6, and I rolled a 1. So in a trap room, there is treasure, and there's no monster here. So now we're going to use, let's go up here, boom, basic, book. We're going to go ahead and use this empty, unguarded treasure, right? This is really simple. And again, the over here on these OSC generators, and I'll put a link to this if you guys haven't seen it already. These are great because you can do stuff on the fly if you don't want to sit there and roll for it. I usually like to roll, but they actually have treasure here by dungeon level, which I'm guessing is these charts. I'm not sure exactly because it doesn't actually say. So if we hit level 2 to 3, because that's essentially where we are, and we hit that, boom, we've got 1,200 soul pieces, 600 gold pieces, just like that. We'll have to figure out how it's in this room. And again, this comes down to flavoring stuff up. But effectively, we're going to put this in this room. This was some kind of guard room. I'm thinking at this point that that would not be necessarily in coins. Although it could be. Maybe it was donations. Maybe there's a lockbox. Lockbox with a slot for dropping in donations. Yeah, there we go, right? Easy as that. So it was still here. This was obviously something terrible happened, and that's what this happened. So maybe it happened really abruptly, and they didn't take the treasure with them. So, All right, back to the map. That's 5. 6 is just the room with the spiral staircase. Let's see if there's anything in there. 2. There's a monster in there. Okay. We've got a monster in there. I'm going to do the same thing I did last time. I'm just going to roll on the monsters I have, skipping over ones that don't make any sense. So 5, so it can't be the harpy or the gargoyles or living statues. So we're going to start here. Actually, it wouldn't be no, actually, I'm wrong. It could be a baboon because they could have came down the stairs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this is where the lizard is. Oh, this is going to be interesting. So this chameleon has crept down into this chamber and is waiting in here. And this is, if the party has got trapped in the first room, right, the first time, they might be able to figure out a way to actually use that to trap the chameleon, if they're clever. And I would allow them to figure out a way to do it if they have a clever plan. Maybe have the doors in the room lower, maybe more slowly, or if somebody runs really fast past it or something like that, I would allow that to work because that's a really cool way to beat a monster like this. Okay, so room 6. This has a giant chameleon. Chameleons like that, I believe, right? Yeah. And let's see if it has any treasure. 6. I believe that 6 is no treasure for a monster. Let's take a look. Monster 6, no treasure. So the chameleon doesn't have a treasure. That kind of makes sense. I mean, there could have been something in the room that wasn't actually its treasure, but there's no treasure in this room. Just a giant chameleon. And of course, stairs going up. Okay, so rooms 7 and 8 are interesting here because 7 is where we're going to put the shrine or whatever. So that's gonna be enclosed. So maybe there'll be shadows in there too if there's a monster at all, or maybe there'll be like one of the slimes or something like that. But they can't really be. You could put undead in here, but I kind of feel like this is a good shrine, and I don't necessarily want the saint or whatever to be inside to be some kind of undead creature. So I think we won't do that. Let's roll, and we'll deal with that when it happens. But 8, we're going to have living statues because that's the hallway. So let's do 7. We're going to roll a d6. I got a 3. A 3 is a trap. That kind of makes sense, actually. And I'm probably going to put treasure in here. We might shuffle some stuff around because if I don't roll it naturally, let me see if I roll treasure. 1. With a trap. 1 is treasure. Yep. Let me show you this again. So again, if it's unclear, we're using this chart here on the left. If there's a trap, and then we roll again, a die roll, second die roll, I rolled a 1. And under trap, yes, there's treasure. So there's going to be treasure in this room as well. So that's pretty cool. We can either do the same thing that we did before, or using the OC generators here. Let me see. I just click on it. Let's see what we get. Okay, so yeah, this is pretty decent for a treasure stash of a saint. Maybe there'll be some stuff in there if they want to rob this. This is probably an area they're not going to go into, so I'm not really that worried about it. Honestly, as far as this is concerned, I was considering moving some of the shadows treasure in there, but since there's no monster and there's just a trap, I think, we'll just put that treasure and that's fine. So let's see, what kind of trap might we use here? Poison gas. I mean, here, you're a tomb robber. Maybe it's a trap would be good. A poison gas trap. Now there really is poison. It's like they've broken into the area of the saint. But again, I feel like a lawful saint probably would not. I'm thinking now that what might work here, because again, they're assuming that people will come to rescue you, right? Because when this was built, they were assuming that like you would, if the monks would be here. So I'm thinking about using the exact same trap that's in the other room, except in this case, basically what'll happen is the door just won't open again. Right? And then you're essentially trapped in there and you're going to die if you don't have enough people in there to rescue you. It's a little harsh, but again, it's 3rd level, so I'm not that worried about that. Okay, but let's think about that in a second. So let's go over here to the iPad. Again, room 7. There's going to be living statues. D6 of them. So there's a bunch of statues in the hallway. How many of them are alive? 4. And room 8. You know, honestly, I feel like maybe the better bet here is going to be maybe the trap is it activates the living statues, because they wouldn't necessarily just have to attack somebody walking down the corridor, right? So maybe that's the thing, right? If you set the trap off inside the room, then you know what? Okay, we're going to combine things. So this is going to make it really tough. If you set the trap off inside the room, then instead of the door immediately closing, the living statues are going to come to life, and they're going to march in there and basically bottleneck the party into the room. Then the doors will close and do the same trap as before. So now people might be dropping to fall asleep, but there's living statues in here attacking you, which is going to make it double it up. So same as room 5. And also, because the party already encountered it possibly, they might have a way around it. They might have figured out a way. Same as room 5, but living statues from room 7 will enter before doorway is blocked, will attack all living creatures, even finishing the sleeping. Okay, so I'm going to put in room 7, only attack if, right? Only attack if room 8 is violated. Room 8 is a trap, and this is activated if treasure is looted. Boom. Okay, so there we go. That's essentially what we're going to do there. We've got some treasure in there. It's probably not going to be something that the party will engage with necessarily, but they can, right? Okay, so let's go over here. Got that in there. Let's go top of structure. Oh, top of island / shrine. All right, so this is actually pretty straightforward, I think. Effectively, it's going to take the party a certain amount of time to navigate the top of the shrine, and they'll make some random monster attempts as they go. There'll be some, you'll play it up a little bit, and then they'll just get to the shrine, and the harpies will be there. So let's go to the map so we can take a peek at this again. All right, so this just keeps me organized because I'm using Procreate here. All right, so the shrine is pretty easy. So we're going to just go, again, there's going to be like a path here. If they want to deal with that, there's going to be the harpy's nest there. That's pretty easy, right? So this is going to be area 1, and then the rest of it's going to be basically random. Now, let's take a quick look at the outside map one more time. Again, 10 yards, and people, they can move pretty quickly, right? So if somebody has a movement of like 60 or whatever because they're in plate mail armor, that's 6 squares, right? So they're going to basically get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to only take them like 2 turns to get up there. So what I would say is I probably would have them, assuming they go straight for the shrine, which they likely will. What I'll do here is I will basically, let's make a quick little mechanic. Effectively, what we're going to do is each move the PCs make, roll 1d6. Okay. One of the results will be that they'll find the shrine, right? So we'll say, actually, let's do this so it's not completely random. It'll be 1d6 plus 1, and then we'll have find the shrine at 6, right? So 6. So let's see. 1 will be they'll encounter a harpy. 2 will be they will hear the harpy song, hear singing, not strong to cause saving throw. Okay. 3, they will find a monster. 4 is going to be find some trace of ancient rituals, ancient ruins, just again flavor. And 5 will be once again encounter harpy, because that means they're getting close to the nest if they rolled a 5. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that because there's only one chance of a random monster. And then after that, well, they could find them in the beginning. Okay, so that's fine. I think that's perfect because then they're just going to more or less encounter the harpies. Okay, and again, our random monsters are going to be, so these, we have 5 of them. I think I'm going to make the rock baboons the second most common thing, and the snakes. So I'm going to go like this. Oh, that's not right. Since I already had the harpies on the list, I'm going to take those off, and I'm going to say gargoyle is 1, living statue is going to be 2, 3 or 4 is a rock baboon, and 5 or 6 is a snake. So none of the random monsters on the top will have treasure, right? You know what? I want to make the ruins random unguarded treasure. Why not? Right? There's a chance they might run into some random monsters. Why not run into some unguarded treasure they can pick up and stick in their sack? Let's take a look at our entire adventure and see if there's anything that we want to adjust here, and if we want to add the lizard men, which I'm kind of thinking we do. So effectively, we've got, let's look at the map. Right, how do we do it? So when we start, right, assuming that we're just going to flavor this up, they're going to essentially be taking boats across to this island. Now, I think they should find some docks and canoes there. They're going to actually be from the lizard men, because even though lizard men can swim and stuff, when I feel like maybe they you know, because they do use weapons and stuff, so why wouldn't lizard men also have boats for when they want to do like fishing or go out or whatever? You know, they can get a lot more fish for the tribe if they go out there and use nets, right, as opposed to just like each person swimming and getting their own fish. So I think that's reason enough to have a group of lizard men. So we're going to add that. But so when they come out, they're going to effectively you know, come to the shrine. They're going to get to that beach area. When they get there, they're going to see there's a cave, but they'll also see that there's a way that they could possibly climb up if they really wanted to make the effort to do so. Assuming they go through the dungeon, they're going to come into this first cave entrance. There's going to be some green slime there. Then they're going to go, they're probably going to take the most obvious thing, which would be to the left or to the right. If they go to the left, they're going to find they can't get past. It's impassable, right? Unless they have some magic to get them through, right? When they go to the right, they will actually enter into 2 rooms, which are effectively empty. They're just going to be flavor. There's going to be random encounter roll, of course. Perhaps they'll run into something, but basically it's empty. Then they're going to come up, go past some cool statues, which will not do anything to them unless they go through that secret door and violate the tomb. If they go basically back to the east, there's a door there. They'll pass through it. They'll go into another room that has the shadows, and there's a bunch of treasure in that room. Then if they skip that door or whatever they do, they go past, they're going to go through that guard room, which is going to be a trap, and it's going to kind of set them up like, oh my God, what happened? Because they're probably not going to get through it without getting knocked out. Then they're going to go through a door. They're going to go up and encounter that giant chameleon, which is very likely going to attack them, but maybe not. Again, we roll reaction rolls. If it doesn't attack them, or it does attack them, whatever happens, they're going to see the stairs going up. They'll go up to the top. On the top, effectively, we're going to roll more or less what we could consider like a random chart each round that they're moving around, or turn, or however you want to look at it. You're going to ask one of your players to roll a d6. They're going to roll, and let's say they get a 3. You're going to be like, oh, random monster. And you'll roll for that. If they got the next time they roll, so they do that, the next time they roll a d6. You ask somebody else, hey, roll a d6. They roll a 4. Well, you add 1 to it because now it's each time, right? So now it's 5. We look at 5. 5 is going to be a single harpy, right? So they go through that encounter. Then they turn around and you say roll again, and now they're adding 2 to it. They roll a 2. That's only a 4. So now it's a random monster. So they'll do that until eventually they either go 6 rounds, right, where they're adding 6, and then they'll basically automatically find the thing, or they could even find it the very first time if they rolled a 6. They'll go to the harpies lair. There's going to be whatever number of harpies is left alive at the lair. They will fight the harpies, obviously. They'll find some treasure. Then they go back down and get the Duke and not the Duke, the Baron, and bring them up and blah, blah, blah. They're heroes. Yay. Done. So it's pretty simple, but I think I want to add a little extra snag with the lizardmen. So let's do that, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Again, I didn't make a note about that, so I'm just going to make a note about when the shrine is discovered, it will be guarded by all remaining harpies. Boom, boom. Cool. Right? Now, let's go back to what we were talking about before, which is the idea of using lizardmen. So I'm going to say lands the swampy forest, and the area is animals. When the party gets to the lake, they will find a simple dock and 0 to 2 canoes, right? These belong to men who will not attack the party on the way in, but may follow them and will almost certainly attack on the party. Please. So, okay, lizardmen, right? They are, in fact, neutral, although you'll see they're not exactly the most friendly people. They're armor class 5. They're 2+2 hit dice, so they're nothing to be messed around with. And any particular layer of them could have a lot. We're probably just going to deal with wandering monsters at this point, unless we develop this into a full-blown, adventure area, which we could do. Let me know in the comments below if you would like to see that kind of thing developed here. But let's just start with the idea that there's going to be wandering. So we get anywhere from 2 to 8 in any particular group of wandering lizard men. Water-drawn creatures look like men with lizard heads and tails. They live in tribes. They'll try to capture humans and demi-humans, take them victim to tribal lair as main course for a feast. So they eat people. So, we're not, right? The semi-intelligent, they use spears and large clubs, and they get a +1 damage. So again, they're not anything to mess around with, but figure anywhere from 2 to 8. If they only encounter a couple of lizard men, they're not going to be that big of a fight, but, we can definitely have them added to the thing. I would say that depending on the situation, you want to decide on that. And let me know, like I said, if we want to develop this into a larger area, we'll do that in another adventure, and then that can be a whole thing, right? But to start with, I would just say, lizardmen are generally occurring in 2 to 8. So that's what we'll list, and then that'll be the end of it. Okay, so I've got a few comments about, because I usually say just fill in whatever you like as far as the description or whatever, how would I do it. So I'll just go through and put a few comments in here just to kind of see how it spices up. I don't usually write long descriptions for myself because I like to kind of play it based on partially the vibe that's going on with the group and just the mood I'm in that day, basically. So let's take a quick look at this again. I'm in my notebook. If we look at this is the kind of notes that I would put: trends to a long abandoned temple, period. And then I would say natural cave with sandy floor, beach. Okay, why am I writing it like that? That opens up, well, first of all, it describes it, but also that opens up the idea that you're going to say, well, it's a sandy floor. People are going to start looking around, right? You're already setting the idea that the players should be exploring. So by saying it's sandy floor, that's going to stimulate them to be like, oh, sandy floor, are there footprints, right? So again, the cave entrance is a natural cave, and there's green slimes in there. That's just going to look like the first part. Room 2 is empty. Now I see this as benches, stone, benches, and rusted metal hooks. The wall remains of rotted robes and sandals. Right, because we already said this is going to be the area where, where they came in undressed, whatever. This is going to be long. Pallets and rotted. Everything's rotted in here. Old blankets. As well as some earthen bowls. Again, this was like the bedrooms, right? Okay, this room is the one with the shadows. This one is going to be like the priest. Maybe this is actually, I mean, my original thought was this was like a high priest chamber, but since there's 7 shadows in here, what I'm thinking now is maybe this was like an actual prayer hall, right? Because we don't have that here besides the shrine on top, right? So this is a, we're going to say each niche holds the remains of a wooden stool. And the wall is with runes, including ancient prayers, period. One prayer is repeated in each used to avoid the traps. And so, you know, I talked about this before with traps. So here we are, we have some traps in here, and this is the way around it. If they come into this room, if they fight the shadows, if they investigate it, if they look at it, they'll have a way around the trap. Otherwise, they're probably going to get trapped in it the first time at least. Once they know how it works, they can do any number of things. Smash the stone thing, put something there so the door doesn't close all the way, because they just need to keep the room filling with gas, right? So room 5, this is a guard room, right? You can describe that any way you want. Room 6 is the stairs going up. That's all I really need. 7 is a hallway of statues. We'll call them saints. So I'm not using that word. Room 8 is the burial chamber. Easy as that, right? This is basically all we need. It's nice and simple. We don't have to go too crazy, because I like to improvise as I'm running games. So I try to write these in a way that they can be very highly improvised and manipulated. Because especially if you're running a module that is not designed for absolute brand new characters that have never adventured before, the DM, you, right? If you're running this, you're going to want to change and adapt for your group. So having too much stuff in there that references to saints and things that you don't have in your world doesn't make sense. You can just have whatever you like there. That's kind of why I do it with very minimal. But let me know what you think about that. Do you prefer that style? Do you like more lore in each of these things that you can somehow then incorporate into your world? I'm curious what you think. Let me know in the comments below. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring the bell so you get the notifications, and I'll see you next time.